When you think about first milestones in your life, what comes to mind? Is it the first day of school? First time you moved out of home? First boyfriend or girlfriend? Is it your first kiss? What about the first time you realize that your injury is permanent? It's not every day that you get to hear about the confronting emotions after a traumatic spinal cord injury.
Hey, I'm Jacob Kremen-Darkin. I had a spinal cord injury in 2019. I broke my C5 and 6, so I've got a C3 and Asia D.
My name's Chloe Kennedy, and I also have a spinal cord injury that I got in 2017. It's at the C6 level, incomplete, and I'm Asia C.
You're listening to Have the Nerve. I'm Susan Wood, and for this episode, we're speaking with Jacob and Chloe as they go through the gamut of first experiences post injury. What have they learned about themselves? Stick around to find out. This podcast episode is obviously for people who may not know or could be in a hospital somewhere and they've just had an acquired disability or just really want to know what it's like as somebody with disability. So we're going to talk about firsts. So maybe I'll just start with, how did you feel the first time you realized that your injury was permanent?
I spent the night crying, but they put me on antidepressants before I even realized I was on antidepressants. So, yeah, and it didn't hit me until I realized I was on them. Thought, I've never been on any medication like this. I don't want to be on it. I can deal with it. And then they took me off them, and then it all just hit me at once. And I spent the night crying, and then a nurse had to come and console me.
So, when you asked, I guess, why am I on antidepressants, did they even tell you before? No, they didn't tell you, did they?
I was in a coma for 8 days in Italy, and then had to get medevaced here. So it wasn't until a couple of weeks later when they kept giving me this little container of meds. I went, oh, actually, what am I taking and why? I mean, I have a medical background. I have never been on until my injury, I'd never been on regular medication. So I just wanted to understand what I was on and why.
And so when you realized that your disability was permanent and obviously that hit you very, very hard, was there any psychological help?
I can't remember if I was seeing a psychologist before or after that. I guess with spinal cord injury, you see all the different physios, OTs, psychologists, social workers, you see everyone. So there was always a psychologist sort of around. And then I changed hospitals to go from the acute to the rehab. And then I kind of had another breakdown I can't remember, maybe a couple of weeks later. And that's when I started seeing a psychiatrist about getting on some sort of other medication. So I needed to go on something else. For me, it was anxiety. It wasn't depression.
What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, well, my experience was really different. I think the moment I realized that I had a permanent injury was the moment I broke my neck. I did a front flip and landed on my head, and it was that instant that I landed, my whole body felt so different. And they always say when you're in school, don't break your back. And you always hear that, bend from the knees. And the moment you break your neck, you know why they say don't break your back. But I knew that something happened then, but it was the moment that I was in hospital weeks later that it really set in when I was with my daughter and we were having lunch down at the cafe at Royal North Shore Hospital, and we're having pasta, and I couldn't move my arms. I was in a power chair, and my daughter at the time, she was 2 years old, and she was feeding me pasta. I wasn't sad. I was just like, this is how it's going to be, and I just embraced that moment.
So then you're in rehab and I guess I'm not actually that familiar with the course of rehabilitation when you actually acquire a spinal injury in later years. Do you go into rehab and then there's a transition period between you in the hospital and then you going home? Do you want to talk about the first time you went home?
Yeah, so the first time I went home, I was in a new area. I was unfamiliar with, what support I had there because I was originally living with my sister and my nephews. I couldn't go back to there. It needed to be accessible. I was in a power chair, And it was different because I didn't have nurses and doctors telling me what to do. So it was good. But I did decide not to take my medications, and it was a really big wake up call because for the first time, a young guy not being told what to do, came off all my pain meds, and I went into extreme withdrawals. It was hard. Honestly, that was the hardest time of my life, coming off the pain meds and having extreme withdrawals.
Yeah, it was quite daunting. I was in rehab and just hospital in general for 10 months. So I spent most of the year, most of 2017 in hospital. And again, I also moved to a new area. So beforehand, I was living in Italy. Before that, I was with sort of just living with my sister. So I decided to move out with my boyfriend, who I had from before my accident. We moved in together for the first time. And again, a new area, an apartment. I moved out in a manual wheelchair, luckily, because it was hard enough trying to find an accessible apartment that fit a manual wheelchair, let alone a power wheelchair. We still do rent, so we couldn't do any modifications to the house or apartment. It took a long time to find somewhere, and I sort of had people in the hospital pushing me to get out of hospital. Sort of, if you don't get out soon, you'll have to go to basically a nursing home if I don't find somewhere. They were kind of giving me a choice. So finally left, found an apartment. I think by that stage I was ready to leave hospital. I didn't know how NDIS worked and how I find support work and how I access the gym, and still all of that was very unknown, but it slowly came together. I do remember the second morning. So I think I got home on, I think it was a Thursday. Saturday morning, I rolled one side, got caught up in my doona and fell out of bed. And I was home alone. So like the second day. So I just managed to get up onto my knees, reach my phone, call my boyfriend and be like, yeah, I'm on the floor. Because I knew that I had a support worker coming. But again, I can't expect, this young girl that's, 60 kilos to come and pick me up and put me in bed. And I didn't have the ability to do that myself. So that was a bit of fun, but it wasn't. It's a funny story to tell, but at the time I wasn't breaking down, depressed. Oh my God, this is my life. It was funny.
Well, I guess it's similar to Chloe. Like, you're in hospital and you get given all these medications and you don't know what they do. So I also found out I was on antidepressants, but for me it was because antidepressants also have this effect to help the nerves. And so, okay, I was okay with that, but I went in there with the attitude I didn't want to be on any medications. I've worked really hard before my injury to be healthy, not just physically, but mentally. I prided myself on not taking anything for that. So then coming home, taking 15 tablets in the morning and 15 at night, that's a lot of medications. Also, I was on a patch that releases like endone basically throughout the day, and I was on a patch for bladder spasm, so it was a lot of medication. I didn't know how to go about it, but I've spoken to other people that came home, and guys, they said they went cold turkey on it, and they said it was awful. It was probably the most silliest thing I've ever done, coming off it all at once. It was extremely dangerous as well, because your body is having extreme withdrawal. So I don't recommend it. What I do recommend from my experience is to talk to your doctor and tell them that you're wanting to come off it. And actually, I had to go back on the medications and wean off it, but it was a journey.
Because I guess people don't really think about the effects of even antidepressants on the system if you're going to go off it immediately is so up and down. And then I guess coupled with so many other pills, patches, like you said, it's just an emotional roller coaster. Yeah. So Chloe, did you have just as much medication when you were coming home, or is it?
Not too much. I think because I was in hospital for so long, I got to a point where I was managing my own medication in hospital, and I sort of knew what worked for me and what I didn't. I didn't have a lot of pain medication, and I was saying, well, I don't have neurological pain. Why am I on this? Take me off it. And then they're saying, yeah, but maybe you don't have it because the meds are stopping you from having it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, just take it, get it away, I get rid of it. And then realize that I don't actually get neurological pain, which is good, but I get a lot of spasm. So I've always taken baclofen, which I still take. And then I went on an anti anxiety tablet, which I still take. Oh, I've been on and off it. That's all I'm really on. Again, bladder medication, I've been on and off. You just sort of play around with what works with your body. But yes. And then pain medication I take when required. But luckily, I've never been on a high dose where I've had to wean off it. But definitely with any kind of anti anxiety or any depressant, you need to wean off that because that really messes with you. And for me, coming off medication was the biggest thing when I was pregnant. So when I found out I was pregnant, the first person that knew was my pharmacist. Because I went to my pharmacy. I'm like, I just found out I'm pregnant. What medication should I not be on? So that was my biggest concern.
Ah, interesting. So we touched briefly with you, Chloe, about being home alone. Do you just want to maybe talk, both of you talk a little bit about, I guess, the feeling you had over the years? You'd obviously have to start adapting yourself to the surroundings that you have. You and I know for sure, Chloe, we both live in rentals that we cannot modify. I don't know about your living situation, Jacob, but has there, what sort of lessons did you learn from being by yourself?
How to find ways around it, I think. Maybe being in a rental actually makes you think outside the box because you don't just rely on, oh, I can get that modified and then you sort of get stuck in your little bubble and then you can't go away and can't go on holidays. I think I've really figured out I can just do things. For me, it was probably because of having my daughter after my injury as well. I found ways to, so I don't have the strength to just, do a floor to chair transfer, for example, but I wanted to get on the floor with my daughter. So I found a way to do that. And from being pregnant and not being able to transfer as easily, I had the couch modified that goes up and down. So I was able to get onto a comfortable place that wasn't my chair, and it's made you think definitely outside the box. But you find ways and tools and adaptive things, and
Yeah, I think I've been lucky to find a rental as well, and it's been made in a way that anyone can live in it, and you wouldn't even know that it's accessible. So, like even when it comes to the door handles I can grab with my hand that is not the best. So I think that the standards of buildings are going up, and it's really good. Everyone's a winner when you build for accessibility. Um, I guess when I'm alone, I have to make sure that I stick to a good routine. I think I thrive off routine. Um, so going to sleep at the same time, waking up at the same time, and having a good morning routine. I'm not trying to rush every single thing. I realized that at the beginning I was definitely trying to rush everything. But if I rush, then I'm going to fall over or do something wrong. So I think if you just take your time and every day try and do it a little bit faster or a little bit more efficiently, and then you yeah, make a really good routine for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, because I guess you can only go up, when you have limitations. The bench might be too high or something. You're going to find a way to work around it. At least in my experience, you can't rely on somebody else to always be around. They may never be around all the time. And then I guess in my head, I'm thinking, do I really want to have that level of the relying on other people? Not really. But that's not my part of my personality. And I don't know if you guys feel the same.
yeah. I'm more than happy to have people come and help me in the way of putting all my clothes away and emptying my dishwasher. But in terms of taking care of myself, I like knowing I can do that.
The way you acquired your disabilities would have been shocking for you, obviously, to be like, oh my gosh. But was there anything around when your family first saw you? And I guess, how was that experience for your family?
My family had to fly to Italy my boyfriend found out because I was with his friend at the time. So my boyfriend's from Italy. I was in Italy. He was in Australia. So him and my mum flew over the very next day. I was still in a coma. And then the Italian embassy contacted the Australian embassy, who told my sisters that I pretty much wasn't going to make it. So then they all flew over the next day. So when I came to 8 days later, I had my whole family just surrounding my bed, and I had no idea where I was because I could see signs in Italian. My Australian family are around me. I had no idea what was going on. They were all upset. So I'm a quadriplegic. They freaked out thinking I guess everyone's quite naive to spinal cord injury if you don't know someone with it, but their thought just went to Christopher Reeves and she's not going to be able to take care of herself. She's going to need, at the time I had a trachea put in. So seeing me hooked up to all these tubes was devastating for them. And even when I was back in Australia, they made my mum see a psychologist as well, just to try and deal with that because she was with me every day. And so yeah, it was very, very tough on them.
Well, yeah, I was rushed after my failure to land a front flip. I was rushed to Westmead Hospital, and I was in a stretcher, and I was pretty high on like morphine. And I seen my mum waiting for me, and I could see the tears running down her eyes. But she was just being comforting. Like it wasn't too long until like I was, just I blacked out. Like they must have given me something to put me to sleep. And then when I woke up, I was in excruciating pain. But there was like my mum and my partner at the time, and everyone was there sitting, and I could see that they were holding back the tears, and I can see their face were wet, but they were there and supporting me. After a couple of weeks, I found out that the doctors told my mum and my close family that I'd be in a hospital bed or a power wheelchair and be on a ventilator for the rest of my life. But the thing is, they never told me that. My family never told me that. They were just there and supporting me. They knew they could see my determination, and I think that's what helped me go forward. Is no one to tell me what the doctors, because I find through my whole journey, the doctors will tell you probably the worst case, because then if it gets better, then it's better. But I think I was there supporting them more than they were supporting me. I was like, yeah, no, it's all good. Don't worry about it.
I think I agree with Jacob with maybe it's better to hear worse news and then have you do better than what they expect than to be told, oh, I think she'll be okay and she won't need a wheelchair forever. Or, whoops, she does.
You've seen the family now, and then I guess the next step after that is basically reintroducing yourself to your friends circle. Was there any hesitation?
I was at the Prince of Wales Hospital for my rehab. I always, the job I had before I moved to Italy was in the same sort of area. So a lot of my friends lived around here. My family were about an hour away, but as my mum came in every day, my sisters would come in at least once a week. And so, like Jacob, had a really supportive family that wanted to see me. And then my close group of friends always made an effort to come in, always included me still with, oh, we're going out for dinner. I'm going to come and meet you at the hospital. We're going to get a taxi together, go to dinner. They always helped me, not too much, as in they weren't smothering me. They just knew how to support me in the right way. So I felt very lucky in that sense that I had a good network of people helping me. I hear a lot of sad stories where people lose a lot of friends. Maybe it's a good way to show you who your real friends are. I was really lucky.
I think for me, because I was 20, I was super fit, and then to be needed three people to hoist me out, into a power wheelchair. It's quite a massive change. And I was always pushing my friends forward, showing how fit I was, and so I think it was pretty confronting for my friends. And I'm young, and maybe a lot of my friends haven't seen anything like this before, like maybe seen in a wheelchair. So I think with time and just more understanding of people's ability, it would have been different. But I think where I was, a lot of my friends were scared to reach out. And I think they were scared to be in hospital because I think if they relate hospital to someone's not okay. So I was there telling my friends, it's okay, like it's all good. Come see me whenever you want. What nice when my friends did come, like we just chatted about normal things and just being there. You don't have to fix someone's problem. I think just being there was really important. I think one of my good friends came over and I had pneumonia and went and had a coffee and it was like a 5 minute chat. But I remember that moment. Like I remember just like your friends coming in. It's really nice.
We've gone from seeing your friends, seeing your family, being at the home the first time. What was it like to go to the bathroom for the first time? Because I think that these are things that people don't really think about, especially people who may be unfamiliar with SCI, even people who might be friends or family of people who have an SCI. So does anybody want to talk about what it was like to go to the bathroom for the first time?
I don't mind going first. One thing with a spinal cord injury is the first thing to go is your bladder and your bowel function, and that's the last thing to come back. So when I was needing to go to the bathroom for the first time, like after my ICU and needed, like, I was in the hospital bed, I called over a nurse and I said, look, I've got this feeling I need to go. So I needed to be hoisted onto a commode. Like that in itself is a mission. I had extreme pain just from that, just from sitting on the commode. So I needed some pain relief. And then I went to the bathroom and through the excruciating pain, I found out for the first time that to go to the bathroom, I needed someone to assist me. And that looks like a nurse having to use their hand and really just helping it come out. So putting their finger up your butt. And that was a norm. After that, I'm like, okay, well, here's my life. It was confronting, but I also knew that it's just normal now. So I'm not afraid to get help. You can't be like shy because at that point, everyone's seen your whole body. You've gone in the ICU. Like you've been put under the needle. You've been like naked. Now it's just like you need help, and when you need help, you don't judge, you don't question it.
Yeah.
You just go.
I didn't. Again, I think because of the way I was in Italy first and had to come here, I didn't even get onto a commode for 3 weeks. I was just in bed and having bed washes, and I didn't even move for a couple of weeks. I do remember coming out of the coma thinking, when did I last go to the toilet? Like, do I need to pee? Because I didn't realize there was a catheter in. I was just like, why don't I need to pee? So I couldn't really understand anything for a couple of weeks. I was in Royal North Shore and they hoisted me onto the commode, and yeah, that first time you're like, what? This is how I need to poo now? But it doesn't take that long before it's normal and you've like pooed yourself many, many times, and it just becomes the norm. And then you realize it's everyone in the ward and you don't feel so alone. And it does take time for it to all become normal, but once it becomes normal, yeah, you start to know your body. Even for me, I remember the first time I went away with wheelchair rugby, and I went with my partner and we took my commode in the car and we were just going to Canberra. Like, I didn't realize that you could hire things, or I just thought I had to do exactly the same as what I'd been taught in hospital, which is what I did at home. And I went away for rugby a couple of weeks ago to Queensland, and so this is 4 years post injury. And I just flew up on my own with my wheelchair, well, and my sport chair, but with nothing else, because now I've learnt that I can just transfer onto the toilet and do it myself. And then as long as there's a shower bench or a plastic chair, just transfer onto the chair, have a shower. So to go from 3.5 years ago, where I was just going to Canberra with my massive commode in the car, to now being able to just fly to another state with just my chair is so liberating.
I had a similar experience because I was sitting on the commode all the time, and I just thought how time consuming that is, and I didn't want to have a house where I needed a commode, and if I needed it, then that's okay. But I just sat on the toilet by myself, and I'm like, okay, it sort of hurts, but like I'm doing it independently, and I don't need to rely on a commode to go. Like if I go away to my my family's house. I don't need there to be a commode. So I practice just with the pressure and how it felt, like the plastic. It does feel different, but just with time, you adapt.
When people talk about disability generally, there's a missed conversation around relationships. A lot of the time, the messaging doesn't actually address the person who actually has the disability, who wants to date or wants to be in a relationship or is in a relationship. I guess for you, Chloe, you're already with your partner, and you, Jacob, were you already with a partner? And the relationship dynamic as a couple, how were people responding?
I felt really responsible, I guess, that I was making my partner be with me in my situation. So we had been together for a couple months. Then I moved to Italy. So we were doing long distance for about a year. Then I had my accident. Like, we've had a very interesting relationship. Yeah, I just felt very responsible and basically said, you don't need to stay with me because you didn't choose this. This is just an accident that happened. So don't feel guilty if you need to leave. But he never once thought that was an option. So even though he's probably seen and done a lot more than any partner should do for the significant other, he's been amazing and stuck by me and very helpful. But there's a point where, yes, your partner can help you with things, but you do need to draw a line. And yeah, I've still always had, support workers help and try and keep a balance between, jobs around the house and personal stuff. And because you still, there's nothing wrong with your partner helping you with some things, but trying to keep it as separate as possible is also, I think, ideal.
Yeah, I guess it's similar. I'm similar to Chloe. I felt really guilty to keep my partner by my side, even though she was extremely loving and supportive. But I just felt like we got into a relationship and we're 2 months before my injury that we started dating, and then all of a sudden, our the dynamic had changed. It got to a point where our relationship was longer, post injury. So we knew each other in hospital longer. And I was in hospital for 9 months. I did start talking to my psychologist because I didn't really feel like I could talk about it with my partner at the time. So I felt like, really guilty. And I guess my psychologist was saying, as long as everyone's happy, then, what's the issue? But that didn't stop me from feeling guilty. We went on dates and everything like that. It was really nice. Like, the fact that I was on a chair, on a power wheelchair, like, it didn't change anything. When you're with someone, you're just with them. Over time, we moved out of hospital. We moved in together. I still felt like a bit guilty that my partner at the time was helping with to get out of my chair and stuff like that. With time, I think we moved away, but like with love, and we just moved forward. So we need to work on ourselves, and that was really important because breaking your neck and being in hospital, it's not just a lot for yourself, but it's also a lot for someone that is looking after you or loving you. So we just needed time, and it was really good.
When you're in a relationship and all of this is so new, you've obviously talked about guilt. Is this guilt based on an self-esteem?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm extremely fit, young, and now I'm in a power wheelchair. I needed support. I needed to be someone that I wasn't, and someone I knew I'd never be. So that fit person. And at the beginning, I thought that fit, strong person was who I was. Little did I know that it's actually who you are in your mind. That's who you are, and that's something you can only learn over time. Like, you don't have to be super strong, and that doesn't identify you. It's not your personality, and you have to go through it as well. And my idea, like, understanding of relationships is it's a lot nice to get into a relationship after your injury, and then that person that you're dating then, they can't judge you for who you were before. They only know you for who you are now. I feel like they can't judge you and like have expectations. And it's a lot more refreshing.
Do you wanna speak to that at all, Chloe?
Oh, yeah, totally agree. Before my accident, I was super independent, traveling, doing it all on my own. And then I thought I would never be independent again, basically. When I was in hospital, I thought, oh, I'm going to need carers around me to do everything in my life. So I guess that part's hard, and you feel like you're putting that on your partner.
Jacob, when you're dating, are you going on Tinder? Are you going on Plenty of Fish? Are we going on eHarmony? I mean, how much of your disability do you reveal?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. I didn't actually search for anyone. I strongly believe that if you're going to get in a relationship, you have to be 100% okay with who you are. So and then like as soon as you love yourself, then it's easy for other people to love you, right? I guess like just meeting people through friends and through uni, it's just how it is. Just be who you are, and it attracts people like-minded. And that's my only advice is like if you search out for people, it's a bit harder, but it's always the places that you don't expect the most that you'll find someone.
And so, whether it's dating or in a relationship, there's going to be sex involved at some point. Do any of you want to talk about what it was like to have sex for the first time after your injury?
Yeah, I kept asking the nurses when I was at Royal North Shore, like, how do you, because, everyone's got catheters in at the beginning too. I was like, can you have sex with a catheter? They're like, yeah, you just push it forward. They're like, if you want to, we'll just close the curtains and blah, blah, blah. And so I was telling my boyfriend, I was like, yeah, they said we can try. And he's like, you're in a room of 4 people. No. So it wasn't until we were at Prince of Wales and I was in my own room, but nurses still keep coming in. And there was one time it took months and months and months. And then finally I talked him into it. So we tried it in the hospital room. It was different, but at least we gave it a go. And then, of course, when you get home, it's easier to kind of experiment and be in your own environment, and you can be more comfortable and see what works and what doesn't. And you've also no longer got a catheter in your urethra.
Romance is not dead just because it's in a hospital room.
Yeah, right.
With me, it's very similar, except I had like an indwelling catheter. So I was like, okay, well, how are we going to figure this one out? And with me, like it still goes hard. Actually, when you break your neck, one of the first signs of a spinal cord injuries is if you get spontaneous erections all day. And I thought like that was just whack. Like honestly, a nurse could touch your skin on your hand, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get an erection. So and that just goes away after time. And you can work with it. I spoke to my social worker and she was pretty open about it, about other people's experiences. Sometimes it's just about like the touch and just being, really caring, and like that it goes from it has to change, and life is changing. With my first experience, I had the indwelling catheter, and I knew it was going to be painful for me. I knew absolutely. But there was a part of me that felt like it's not just about how I feel, it's about how your partner feels. And I feel like to move forward and to try new things, you have to be somewhat, it's silly to say, but like selfless. And for the first time, it was different. You just got to bend the catheter around and just got to work it out.
So would you say that the way you have sex is different from before to now? So sensation-wise or emotional?
Well, for me, it's definitely a different sensation. I'd say it's a bit of a superpower because you don't just basically come straight away. Like it just goes for hours. It's more of an internal feeling, and it's a full body experience instead of just like where you're touching. So it's definitely different like that.
Yeah, my sensation's different. Luckily, I do have some sensation. I remember being maybe this is too much information, but I remember being in Italy and having bed baths, and some of the nurses were really good looking. And I remember saying to my sister, it's okay, I can still feel down there, and he's really hot.
Nice.
You can't do certain things that you did before, but you can still make things work and, yeah, figure out what feels good. That's part of the fun.
You're both parents. Do you guys want to talk about parenting with a disability, just briefly?
I don't know what it's like to be a parent without a disability, but certain things were a struggle for me, especially early on. So before I had my daughter, I would practice on a doll, and it's like, oh yeah, these nappies are easy. Didn't realize that the baby actually moved a lot, and it's not as easy as putting a nappy on a doll. So that was a bit disheartening at the beginning. And then like bathing's so hard because they're so little and delicate. So I guess the first few months were hard, but I managed, and it's just sort of gotten easier as she's gotten older. So she's 2 now, and I'm able to take her to school on my own. She doesn't run away. She waits when I tell her to. She knows how to climb up onto my lap. I still worked around everything before she was able to help me help her. I figured out my own way to get onto the floor to play with her. I figured out my own way of keeping her on my lap, how to hold her, how to go out. I guess it was daunting from the outside perceptions when I went to mother's group. So I still wanted to go to a mother's group because this was my first baby. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I had lots of help from my mum and friends with kids, but, I wanted to be in a mother's group. So that was a bit weird because I had to bring my partner with me. So it's like, how do I get my 6-week-old to mother's group? And then if she cries, get her out, start feeding her, doing all these things. My partner had to come, whereas no one else's partners were there. And then people have wanted to, I guess, help more when they see us out, and if they see us struggling, it's like, oh, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, it's okay. She's just having a tantrum on the floor. It'll be fine. Or they'll see us crossing the road and they get a bit worried, but you can see people like, do I help? Do I not help? Do I help? Do I not help? It's manageable. The older she gets, the easier it is.
Yeah, I guess when I was in hospitals, like one of the things I was thinking was, how am I going to be a dad? How am I going to not just get through my rehab, but be a dad for my daughter and lift her up and play. It gave me lots of time during the hospital to regain the skills, and the time I spent with my daughter in hospital, like she was just sitting on my lap. It didn't change her. Like she loves, and like your children just love you no matter what. That's the thing. They adapt really fast. I have like goals with my physio to get down on the floor and play with my daughter, and those are goals that I work towards. I've even gone to Lollipop's Playland and just gone through the whole thing with her. I was just crawling the whole way, but no, like nothing really changes. It's different. You could still have a really good relationship with your children, and I still do. It's really awesome. I try to do her hair, and I've only got one good hand, and she's like, "Come on, daddy, like just a bit faster."
Well, my daughter now, if I'm on the couch and she wants me to do something, she pats my wheelchair. She's like, Mummy, chair. So she knows that I need that to get around. And if I'm in the way, she just pushes me. She's like, Mummy, move.
It's hilarious. Having the perception of you with somebody with a disability out in the community and then now looking for work. How has that journey been?
I started working when I was still in rehab. So I was 28 when I had my accident. I already had my degree and I'd already worked in my field, which is medical science. Because I was at Prince of Wales, my good friend was also working at Prince of Wales in genetics lab. And she said, oh, why don't you come and do some work experience with us? And I said, that sounds great. So the INVOC program helped me organise some work experience. I went up there and worked there until, for quite a while, just volunteering until a position came available, and then I applied and got the job. And I worked there until I got pregnant, and then took time off, and then went back earlier this year. So I'm with them now, just part-time.
Previously to my injury, I was doing landscape construction, and I was doing that for 6 years, running a small team, really physical. And I knew I wouldn't be able to get back into that. So I enrolled in uni and so upskilled and still doing that course of health science. But I thought, like, because I needed so much help in hospital, it was a nice way after coming out to give back and just to volunteer. So did as much volunteering as possible. And only now, like after all the rehab and physio, like I know where I'm at just to apply for a job as a support coordinator. So it'd be a way where I can help give back. I think you have that first-hand knowledge of what you do need, and it's invaluable. I think when you don't have any knowledge about the disability, or if you don't have anyone in your family, a bit hard to relate to know like what kind of supports. There's that little advice that you can give to people that really helps in a big way.
How would you describe the journey you acquiring your disability to this point now, and what advice do you feel like you should have been given that you weren't given?
Yeah, I honestly never thought I'd be where I am so soon. Well, I know it's been, it's been, I guess, 4.5 years to this point, where if I think back to lying in that hospital bed in Italy, I never thought, in less than 5 years, I'd be as independent as I am, with a daughter, working nearly full time, running my own little side business. Well, I'd sort of do 4 different jobs, um, and just, still be with my partner. I've already travelled back to Italy. I've travelled interstate. I'm part of a team sport. I guess I never thought I'd be involved in so many things. I think I even do more things now than what I did before my accident, just in terms of the sport and being a mum and working and seeing my family, seeing friends. Yeah, feel very accomplished, and only a couple years after my accident. So just don't be scared to try new things. And I do highly recommend getting into a team sport, or getting back into work, or just something to take your mind off your injury, because that's what I struggled with at the beginning, just being 24/7 in my head, surrounded by just everything to do with spinal cord injury. I guess still playing a wheelchair sport, I guess it still revolves around your injury, but I don't know how to explain it. It's different. You're around other people that are independent, and it's good for your mental health. It's good for your physical health. It's not necessarily about, oh, I'm disabled. It's about empowerment.
Yeah, nice. I think if I could go back and tell myself some things, it would be like, you know, you're not defined by what you do physically. I think you're defined as who people remember you by. And if you're a caring person, you can still be who you are. And just because you have a life-changing disability doesn't mean that you can't achieve more and be a super achiever in whatever you do. Just give it 110%. I think having a good routine is really important. If you stick to that, you will thrive. And also, like when you have your injury, your mind wants to go 100 miles an hour, and your body it's basically stands still. And I think to recover well is to keep your body and your mind at the same speed. If you're just trying to be who you were before, it's not going to help. I think you have to accept what has happened, and then you can move forward and grow. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't worry about what other people think about you, because at the end of the day, it's your life. Like, oh, I used to think, oh my goodness, like people are going to judge me for this or that. Just do it and just have fun doing it. Like, don't be afraid to laugh at yourself as well. I think if you laugh at yourself, you always think, oh, this will be funny in 10 years. Why don't you just say it's going to be funny now and just live in the moment? That's what helped me.
So I guess I lied. I do have a final question. That's this question now. This was something that came up in the peer support episode that I'm going to bring up with you. How important in yourself to try and get walking? How important was that back then to how important is it now? Now I know Jacob, obviously you walk around a little bit and you're, mobile, more mobile than the both of us, because I guess a lot of people might think that is the most important thing and you're always aiming towards that. But is that the case?
That is so true. You do focus so much on that. I remember, again, being with a scientific background, trying to find all these journal articles and research, and how long is it going to be before I walk again? And I did get to the point where I could walk a little bit, and I would do 3 walks a day. It was, pretty decent for my function, but it wasn't functional. I couldn't use it for anything other than exercise, which again was fine. But now, I mean, I did a bit of a walk last week. When I say a bit of a walk, it was 3 steps. And I've really gotten it into my head that it's great for exercise, and that is fine by me. If I can keep some muscles in my legs, which help me do my transfers and help me with other things in life, move around in bed, move around on the couch, it does help me. My mind isn't focused on, oh, I need to be able to walk so I can walk everywhere. I know that that's not a possibility for me at this stage in my life. And it doesn't bother me anymore. So I sort of wish that I could maybe tell myself that a couple of years ago, to stop being so in my head about that's the be all and end all. Now my priority is being independent with my daughter. The fact that I traveled on my own, that's so much more important than being able to get up and walk around. Yes, there's certain times where it would come in, be helpful to reach things that are high and just be able to stand up, sure. But it's definitely not the be all and end all.
Yeah, I think when I was in hospital, that was like one of the things I was focusing on, trying to get my feet moving. And then I was in physio and I started to weight bear, and it took a lot of energy. And I'm super grateful to be able to, get around with a crutch. But there are also times where I use my wheelchair. And so if I was going out in the community, I'd 100% choose my wheelchair. It's because I won't be in pain when I'm walking around, and I'm walking really slow. When I say walk, I mean like limping. Getting around my wheelchair, and I'm having a better quality of life and still doing the things, and that's what I wish I could understand before. So you work really hard and you can get on your legs and stuff, but a switch will flick, and then you realize that it's not about walking and limping everywhere. It's about just being in the moment and enjoying.
You've been listening to Have the Nerve, a podcast by Spinal Cord Injuries Australia. If you would like to know more about what we've discussed in this episode, please check the show notes for details and visit scia.org.au for more information. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, please consider giving us a 5-star review. Your review will help us get the word out there. And finally, we're also on social media. You can find Spinal Cord Injuries Australia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Thank you for listening.